Hi, and welcome to my research project on ICT professional development based on some Talis data by Melissa Rickert from Texas Tech University. ICT is information and communication technology. This is essentially everything that you can conceive of in the realm of communications. All of our computers, our smartphones, our tablets, devices, iWatches now, any way that you can conceivably communicate with another person. And we're looking at it in the realm of education, but that's what we're looking at here. We've all, to some degree, used ICT methods in our careers and as educators. The old methods of ICT would be, a handwritten or typed letter out to the parents. You would write up your weekly newsletter on your computer and send that out to parents. Weekly, quarterly progress reports that you would print out on paper and send out to parents. That old phone call home that we know so well would also be an old form of ICT. I know, yeah, staying late to finish your work on your desktop. Had many of those nights. Newer methods of ICT would include digital messaging, such as using apps, such as Remind or Blooms. This kind of takes the place of both individual communication with parents and mass communication with parents. So, this, in my world, this takes the place of a newsletter, because I can update parents almost instantaneously as to what's happening in our classroom. Some teachers can keep daily classroom blogs to keep parents informed of what's happening and reminding them of upcoming events. In my school, we're required to weekly, some people even, the parents check daily. I've even heard up to 3 times per day, because we update our grades online through a portal that students and parents have access to. And so this is a new way that we update parents as to how students are doing. Honestly, phone calls are becoming more and more rare, at least in my experience. Emails, text messages are more the way to go as far as having to communicate with that parent. And even though we're more mobile, I find myself working on schoolwork late into the night because I didn't have to stay at school to do it, but I'm on my laptop, and I think that's a common theme that I've heard with teachers is, we're on devices all hours, and expected to answer those emails and text messages from parents as quickly as possible. And I've emailed and texted students and parents well into the night and very early into the morning. So I think there's a little more pressure to be communicative, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but just something to be aware of. So the question that I raise is, how effective are current ICT professional development programs? This is what I noticed with the data in the Talis questions, is that there have been, the teachers were asked if they had participated in ICT professional development programs, and many responded that they had. But how effective are these programs is within the realm of our professional development? Our literature review. I think as many people can see, our technology is changing very rapidly. Things especially with regards to communication. I see this reality now that was only science fiction when I was a child. Is go-go gadget on his wristwatch, talking with his niece, and all these fancy things, and Mission Impossible. And these are our current reality, and it's just, I can't even imagine what's coming. But we have to be ready for that, and we have to be willing to make these changes, as Johnson talks about in her paper on communication in the classroom. Um, Really, she's talking, this paper discusses a lot of verbal and nonverbal communication in the classroom, but I think that the communication that we have with our students, I mean, email and voicemail and text messaging, and the things that we do with parents and students in order to communicate well. I think Johnson just put it so perfectly in the quote, as the needs of our children and ultimately the needs of our society change, we must be willing to make changes to meet these future needs. Future is a very short amount of time these days. Next year could be a whole new set of technology, a whole new ballgame. I mean, we look forward to the next generation iPhone coming out every fall, and what changes it'll bring as far as our communication is concerned. And so our needs are changing so rapidly as a society. We have to keep up. So much so, this study by Pero from Localytics talks about, this site is actually talking to app developers, but their research showed that that the app retention rates are only 20% after 3 months. If it lasts longer than that, it's really a big deal. And to think that something that you're using right now within 3 months could be gone, it's obsolete. There's a lot of concerns as far as the communication technology students are using, and how that affects them socially. Snapchat and Twitter, and there's just a list a mile long of apps that they use. And by the time we realize them as teachers, as educators, by the time we realize that that's what they're using to communicate, they've stopped using that. And so it's really going to take an effort on our part as educators to keep up with the technology in order to communicate most effectively with these students. As far as professional development is concerned, IES, which is most known for their What Works Clearinghouse, is it was set up by government in order to give the very best practices, products, programs based on educational research. And as they examined professional development programs, they found, after previewing 1,300 professional development programs, only 9 met their evidence standards. That seems problematic, especially if we're not effectively having professional development to educate our teachers on the best practices. We're not going to be able to keep up. So we need to be working on creating and implementing best practices as far as our professional development is concerned. Teachers are notorious for not being up to date on the latest technology, as a general rule, obviously. But some of the reasons teachers have had a hard time with ICT implementation include, but are not limited to, the lack of ratio of computers to students, lack of teacher knowledge, poor internet Wi-Fi service, difficulties integrating into existing curriculum, lack of technical assistance, not enough or good quality trainings, lack of interest by teachers. Many of these could be addressed through good professional development if it were available. Obviously, quality, good quality professional development. There are a couple of studies that have shown good models of professional development in ICT. I'm not even going to chance the name, but the study in 2016 shares their results from a blended approach. This study asked the teachers to do similar to a program that we are currently engaged in, that asks this teachers to become students and requires of them that if they are going to learn this new technologies, that they actually participate in these new technologies. And so having some of these classes be online helps them with their technology implementation, and then the face-to-face contact really helps to boost their morale, allows them to ask questions. So it's a very interesting study. Another study is a metacognitive approach, which places that responsibility in the hands of the teachers to self-monitor their learning. This is so important. It's something that I think a lot of schools are trying to do with students in helping them to realize what it is they don't know and work toward finding that out. It helps with motivation, self-perception, and it really helped these teachers to feel it didn't expect them to come to the same place at the same time, and so there really wasn't that pressure, and so it allowed them to grow without all that pressure. And most teachers self-reported that they did grow quite significantly through that process. The methods for my research were a Pearson correlation were run between two Talis questions. They were both on a Likert scale. The first Talis question was in the professional development area topics that they had participated in an ICT professional development. The second was asking about the needs of further ICT development in the areas of education and teaching. After running a Pearson correlation, it turned out that it did show that there was significance between these. However, when I ran a scatter plot, because of the extreme amount of data provided, which is a fantastic resource, but when you're looking at a Likert scale of 1 to 4 and thousands and thousands and thousands of reports, and the scatter plot looks like this, and so it was not very effective. I transferred that to a linear view, and this was much more effective in showing the negative slope of the correlation line. It is showing what one would expect, in that the need for ICT training goes down as the impact of prior training goes up. The mean for the level of impact of professional development was 3.1 on a 1.4 scale, meaning that most people showed that they had a fairly positive impact based on their professional development in the area of ICT. The mean level for need of future ICT professional development was 2.62 on a 1.4 Likert scale, meaning that it's kind of a middle of the road answer that, it was kind of all over the place and not slanted one way or another in the need for professional development. And so the Pearson correlation test shows that there's significant, though very slight, negative correlation between these two markers, indicating that there's a slight decrease in the perceived need for ICT professional development as a positive impact of prior ICT increased. There are some limitations on this study. It's based on a data set that we don't have a lot of information about regarding what professional development was actually implemented. So we don't know what ICT professional development was provided. We don't know the difference between a program that was rated a 4 in positive impact versus a program that was rated a level 1, a 1 as far as positive impact was concerned. We don't know if these are national, state, or local level programs. So are they more individualized, or is this more of a standardized professional development program? We don't even know who's participating in these professional developments. They could be, tech savvy teachers prior to this professional development who felt, yeah, we got something out of it, but maybe, we don't really feel like we need a lot more. We don't know if they were participating in this professional development on something that perhaps they've been utilizing in their classroom for the last year or 6 months, and they're just getting more training on it, or is this something that's completely brand new? Remember, our rate of change is significantly high as far as technology and information communications. So we have just a lot of limits to the data as far as why things occur, which leads to future research that's necessary. So is there a benefit to standardizing professional development as far as the area of ICT is concerned, meaning on like a national or state even level? Perhaps having more individualized professional development, like the metacognitive study, where the professional development is based on individuals and what do they know and where can we get them? Should there be ICT standards for educators? Things change so quickly, it's difficult to say, if this would be effective, especially since they potentially would have to change annually, but that's something that would need to be looked into. We have to consider that the United States is not included in this Talis data, and so is that being where we live, is there, or most of us live, I'm sorry, is there a difference in ICT and professional development here? Are we keeping up with the trends? Are the teachers in the United States positively impacted or feel the need for future professional development in the area of ICT? Thanks so much. Here are some of the resources I was able to utilize. I appreciate your attention and look forward to your feedback.